What is today Latin America was once many native nations. Spain, Portugal, France, England, the Dutch, and Danish all invaded. They carried out genocide after genocide and enslaved both natives and Africans. After independence, most new governments were still white-dominated, with more genocides against natives in nations like Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. European powers hold on to some territories even today, and kept invading to take their colonies back. The United States invaded too, overthrowing or trying to overthrow over 60 governments, the last attempt in the year 2020 in Venezuela. The U.S. also took half of Mexico's land and a tenth of its people, and then Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. There's a long history of many Americans fearing and hating Latinos. Latin America's image and reality is often one of instability, poverty, drug cartels, revolutions, corruption, and refugees. But it did not have to be this way. Latin America could remain all or mostly native nations. I spoke about this in detail in the previous series, What If Natives Won? Poverty, white domination, and foreign invasions could have been stopped, prevented, or limited. The U.S. could have been more Latino culturally, with higher numbers of Latinos. The U.S. could have been less racist, less dominating, or the U.S. could be defeated. Some Latin American nations could even become regional or world powers. There's a huge lack of alternate history about Latin America and Latinos. So much alternate history is Europe-centered, mostly because so much history and history teaching is Europe-centered. This series is dedicated to scenarios, points of departure, and possibilities of Latin American victory within Latin America, and a more Latino or less racist American society. My name is Al Carroll. I'm Associate Professor of History at Northern Virginia Community College. I've written mostly about wars, veterans, human rights, and genocide. My next history book will be Genocide Denial in America, about the 7 genocides against indigenous people that took place in the U.S. that most people were never taught about, don't know, or deny. I've also written some science fiction, mostly alternate history. One story, Timely Saviors, appeared in a short story collection, The Witness Paradox. I'm also, together with Rob Schmidt of Bluecorn Comics, editing and putting out a short story alternate history collection, What If Natives Won? Or Killing Columbus. I've also written a sci-fi alternate history book, The Man in Black, the first of a series. The largest genocide in Latin America and the largest genocide against natives in the past 100 years was in the small nation of Guatemala. Guatemala's population used to be majority Mayan Indian. There are 23 major Mayan cultures in Guatemala, each of them distinct peoples with distinct languages. Genocide turned Guatemala from majority native to majority mestizo, and still white, dominated, and deeply racist. It also changed Guatemala from almost all Catholic to almost half Protestant, especially fundamentalist. Mayan genocide was mostly due to one man, General Efraim Rios Montt. Rios Montt was a fundamentalist fanatic who believed he was sent by God to fight Indians and communism. Drain the pond of water and the fishes die, he believed. He thought Indians were likely to support communism, so killing Indians would kill communism. In reality, most communists were mestizo, mixed race, or Latino, European ancestry, and the number of communist guerrillas was small, only a few thousand, split into 3 different groups. So as dictator, Rios Montt ordered the massacre of over 600 native villages, killing up to 200,000 Mayas. Even compared to other genocides, this was especially brutal. Pregnant women were raped to make them miscarry and lose their babies. Sometimes the baby was cut out and strangled. Mayas were also ordered to attack and murder each other. They were forced to join so-called civil defense patrols. They were without uniforms, poorly armed with old hunting rifles and shotguns, and sometimes just clubs. But they were commanded and surrounded by heavily armed army soldiers with machine guns, who would execute them for not following orders. To prove loyalty and not be murdered, Mayas had to attack neighboring and even their own villages, killing neighbors and even family members. The number of people killed was so high, Guatemala was the only Latin American nation to lose population. Hundreds of thousands also fled to Mexico or the U.S. Losing so many workers and the bad publicity from genocide crashed Guatemala's economy. Rios Montt was overthrown by other generals. He wasn't charged with genocide until the 2000s, when he was convicted of it, but died while the case was being appealed. The man most responsible for Guatemalan genocide after Rios Montt is Ronald Reagan. Reagan gave Rios Montt U.S. weapons, advisors, funding, and training, even when Congress banned it. Reagan went one step further with a massive campaign of disinformation and genocide denial, pretending the atrocities weren't happening, and Rios Montt was, quote, a man of great integrity, later saying the genocide charge was, quote, a bum rap. If Reagan had been defeated in 1980 for election, that does not mean Mayan genocide doesn't happen, but it doesn't go nearly as far and doesn't kill nearly as many. If Jimmy Carter won re-election, military arms, money, and training to Guatemala is quickly cut off. Guatemala is diplomatically isolated. Carter and the UN may even overthrow Rios Montt and send in peacekeepers. The death toll of 200,000 is half that, and Rios Montt faces war crimes trials. Another way to prevent Mayan genocide is if Rios Montt died young or never became dictator. A different dictator continues repression, but they don't engage in mass killings on the same scale. At that point in the Guatemalan Civil War, most of the deaths were mostly Latinos, mixed race or culturally European people, and mostly in the cities, not the rural villages. The very long Guatemalan Civil War itself could be prevented. Way back in 1954, the elected president, Jacobo Arbenz, was overthrown by the CIA at Eisenhower's orders. After it, Guatemalan leftist soldiers revolted. Arbenz was falsely accused of being a communist, simply for no longer outlawing the Communist Party. Part of why he was falsely called communist was because he ordered an American fruit company's plantations bought out. The company was partly owned by the Dulles brothers, one of them head of the CIA. A different CIA director, or Eisenhower listening to different advice, means no coup and no Guatemalan Civil War, or at least far later. Guerrillas fighting the government could also have won a victory against the dictatorship, and this would not be easy. They were only a few thousand against 10 to 15 times that many government troops and paramilitaries. A military victory is almost impossible, but building international support similar to the campaign against South Africa and apartheid is much more likely, probably the only way. In real life, Rigoberto Menchu's books and speeches and international human rights groups did far more to end the dictatorship than any guerrilla movement. With no Mayan genocide, Guatemala would itself be a different nation. It would still be majority Mayan native. Far less racist, far less traumatized, either staying democratic or returning to democracy with far less death toll and pain. This is the end of the video. Please repost freely, like, quote, and comment. This has been Latin American Victory. Next time we will discuss what if Argentina wins the Falklands War.